All right, we are live with another episode of the Blue Crocus Experience. And today, I'm joined by a fellow Canadian and someone who's just next door, only about 5 hours away from me. So we were discussing before we jumped on. We're in the same time zone, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm joined by Ryan Chute, and really excited to kind of dive into some branding stuff, some marketing stuff. He works with a world class organization, and he's got some good info to share. So Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Lewis. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So maybe give people a little background, who you are, where you are, and then we'll kind of let the conversation flow from there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm a partner at Wizard of Ads. They call me the Wizard of Sales. I came into the Wizard of Ads as a sales operations guy, looking at the culture, the leadership, the internal workings, the internal branding, as it were, the messaging, recruitment, those types of things as a carry forward in the early days of Wizard of Ads. And what I discovered was we really don't need to be so drawn or specific, because they all serve each other, right? When we have a world-class culture, we're going to be able to deliver a better buying experience. And it's the better buying experience that allows us to deliver those wonderful stories that the Wizard of Ads writes about every single month on radio and TV and so forth. So what we're really trying to achieve is just alignment with all of the channels, be it external channels like digital and mass media, straight through to those internal channels, the message that you're telling your CSRs and your salespeople and your technicians, so that they can do the job as consistently along with the same beliefs and values that we're telling the world that we believe in, so that everything matches up and becomes quite familiar.
That's cool. So tell us a bit about the Wizard of Ads, because when we jumped on a year or so ago, when we first connected, I wasn't super familiar. Now I've got all the books. I've subscribed to the email thread and whatnot. But give us a little background on the Wizard of Ads.
Yeah, there's a couple of great emails. The Monday Morning Memo is Roy's weekly blog post that he does. Has been doing it for 35 years. That's where all of those books came from. Back in the good old days, before blogs and emails were a thing, he was sending it out on a page of fax paper. Now, anything past a page of fax is going to be another 25 cents. So he always made sure he wrote enough so it would just stay on one fax page, because it's 25 cents at a time. He had upwards of 6,000 people by the time he had finished faxing and started doing email, getting these faxes. So you can imagine the unbelievable costs that he was going through to send out these fax pages. So needless to say, that's where this came from. But there is a certain charm in brevity and conciseness in telling a story and then moving on with things, having that story evolve over time, which is what we specialize in at the Wizard of Ads. It was opened by Roy H. Williams. He is the Wizard of Ads, the actual guy, and has extraordinary track record of success. He's an absolute genius of a man, and is an incredible storyteller. Now, what he has done over the last 20 years is bring on people like me that he hand selected from his classes that he teaches at the not-for-profit school in Austin, Texas, called the Wizard Academy. No, it has nothing to do with Hogwarts. It was invented before Hogwarts was a thing.
Not many people can say that, right?
Not too many. Yeah. Cool. This is the real deal. Yeah. But it is quite magical in so many ways, because what you're getting there is the ability to persuade and communicate, use the written word as this device. And it goes back to the comment that Steve Pinker, who's the head of neuroscience at first MIT and now Harvard, who says that the reason why humans are the apex of the planet is because we're the only ones who can assign complex meanings to sound. Right. And that's the symbols that we see in words, through to the music that we sing and the stories that we tell. It's that allows us to evolve and be at the top of the list, because we're able to assign this to sound. So that's really been the root of all of our concepts and all of the foundation of how we persuade and influence people for the last 40 years.
That's cool. That's true. It is. I mean, that's very interesting. I remember a little side topic here. There was a group of Native people in Colombia and I got to talk to someone who discovered them, supposedly, whatever that means.
Mhm.
And he ended up getting captured by them, living with them, and they spoke in tonal languages.
Yeah.
So they whistled. They could whistle their language. They could hum their language, and just fit right into the jungle, right?
Right.
But then, we've come up with all different ways of articulating that. I don't think
Right.
we're as efficient at conveying our languages over whistling, but yeah, that's cool. So how does that translate into business? Obviously, we can see a line here as marketers, but for the everyday business person, how does that translate into getting your message out, and how do you help people do that?
Well, I think probably the biggest challenge that most companies face, most families face, any tribe faces, any clan faces, is a definition of terms. Tribes come together when they agree upon a definition of terms. That's why we have Baptists and Presbyterians and Roman Catholics and Buddhists and everything else, because we're agreeing to a set of values. We're
Mm,
agreeing that these things that we say mean something and that we stand for them. Right. And that feeds into our core motivations. There's three positive core motivations: identity, purpose, and adventure. And identity being the strongest of all motivations, right? This is the reason why we get up in the morning, because we're trying to keep up with the Joneses, because we're trying to get past the hustle and bustle of the survival mode that we've start with. It's the reason why we do all of the things that we do to affect our personal brand, align ourselves with brands, right? And that works at employment level, that works at customer level, that works at your kids level, that works at your wife's level, that works at your level. So when we agree to a definition of terms, that we agree that these symbols, these elements, these things all say the same thing, and that we stand for that, now we have a very powerful tribe, and that powerful tribe can go out and grow, prosper, be healthy, be wealthy, be happy.
very cool. And then, once you define it internally, it is the biggest thing alignment internally, because there's got to be some sort of alignment with it externally as it comes to the market starting to understand what you do and how you do it.
Depending on how big you are, you've taken the time to make it internal or external. When
Mhm.
you have a small group, it's very easy to keep that alignment. As the group grows, you have to define it and stand for it, right? It's what you tolerate that what actually ends up happening. That's what becomes your culture. So if you tolerate something that you don't agree with, then it's going to persist because you allowed it to,
Yeah.
right? And that's the job of the tribal leader, is to make sure that everyone stays on track and is following a purpose, a path, a direction, a vision, right? All of these things that we talk about in the normal context of life. So yeah, absolutely, it's really important to do it internally, or at least have the heart that is intending in the right spot. um, Life and sales and everything that we do all comes down to intention. And if we really just focus on what we want to be in this world and what we intend to be and intend to be perceived as, we're going to have that success. We just have to communicate it in a concise and consistent way, not just internally, which is super important, so that that buying experience stays true, right? World class, upper level, high quality, right? But on the external side, we have to tell way more people than we're normally telling our story and what we stand for and what we believe in the context of our customer and our customers' lives, right? For it to be super powerful. When we can do that, and we can do something that's not just different but distinctive, game over. You win. You have the operations to keep up with capacity, you're going to blow it up.
Amazing. So I'd like to get right into the good stuff here, because I think everybody's hearing that makes sense. This was all good. What I mean by good stuff is like the actionable tips that people can take. So let's say you're working with a lot of junk removal companies, right? But let's take any business. What are some examples that you can think of off the top of your head of ways that people have done that, to where, as long as they have the fulfillment set up and sorted out, they can just blow up? But talk
Mhm.
to us about that in practical terms of actionable steps people can take today.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you have a good operation that believes in the same things that you believe in, and you've steered this beast down to, let's say, $3 to $5 million in revenue. You're a going concern. You now have to have systems and operations in place, and then you have to start adding that layer of people in that are going to start pulling hats off your head so that you're not doing everything. And you have a sales manager, you have an office manager, you have a finance person, you have an operations person, whatever the case might be, right? All of those people need to know what that game plan is, and that system needs to be put into place so that they're continuing to repeatedly do the same thing that you want them to do consistently over time. Customers don't buy from McDonald's because they're the best hamburgers in town. They buy them from McDonald's because it's the most consistent hamburger in town. They know how much it's roughly going to cost. They know what it's roughly going to taste like. They know it's going to fill the void and move on, right? So they're not going there for, gourmet burgers.
Fill the void. That's a new marketing line.
Right, the fill the void. Yeah, dear Lord. That's a deep rabbit hole. So when we have that operation in place, what we call that, and this is a huge body of research called operational excellence. There's a book called the Disciplines of Market Leaders that was written 20 years ago that's founded on a whole bunch of principle-based business modeling. There's three of them are represented in that book. The home service industry thrives in operational excellence. Now, the biggest challenge here is that we can't say operational excellence, which means efficiency for all intents and purposes, without some sort of experiential level. You need to have both. The problem is that most people just try to water it down into this vanilla thing that doesn't do anything. What you're trying to do is be an amazing delivery mechanism, right? From a customer experience standpoint, and you're doing that as efficiently as possible. Toyota created a term in Kaizen or something. I can't remember the term. There's a term where it's basically just improving subtle changes, right? When you have a hood open on a car and your tool is set perfectly right there, that it's in perfect reach, where you don't have to walk over to the thing and then walk back. We've just improved efficiency by however many steps that it took, right? And if you can do that in your business, which you can all do, right, then you have this powerful, hyper efficient mechanism that just goes boom, Bob's your uncle, done. So it wouldn't be prudent of me to talk about the home services industry in so much as the 1-800-GOT-JUNK or any of those things. But you look at Wow One Day Painting, which is another one of Brian Scudamore's companies. And Wow One Day Painting can go into your house in an entire day. They can paint the entire house before you get home from work, right? Yeah. You leave, these guys come in, do their thing, paint, clean up, leave, right? Your entire house painted one day, right? Pretty impressive. Now, how do they do that? They do that through hyper efficiency. Now, you would think, holy cow, that's an experiential model. No, it's not. We just didn't sacrifice experience to deliver the hyper efficiency, right? And by that hyper efficiency, team A goes in, does this, bam, done, out, done, 2, 3, out, 1, 2, 3, out, done, 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 done. The whole house is done, pre-prepped, painted, unprepped, clean up, done. Everything is hyper systematized. And when we do that, there is your operational excellence. So this is how home service companies become really big, because they don't try to kill themselves with 100 different solutions that are customized to every customer. That is impossible to scale. The thing that you can do consistently is show up, blow it up on the things that you've pre-built based on your knowledge and your skill set to deliver it. In home services, you could look at a company who presents 5 options. And in those 5 options, you could have basic systems, mid-line systems, and high-end systems, and show it as 5 systems when it's really only 3 systems.
Right.
Mazda does this with their Mazda 3, the GX, the GS, the GT, the low, medium, high, and with each category, one's hatch, one's sedan. They're showing 18 different models. Then you get the color iterations. You have what feels like a whole bunch of choice. What it really boils down to is 18 options, of which you're going to eliminate one immediately. You either like hatches or sedans. You're going to eliminate another half, automatic, manuals. You're going to quickly pare it down to the one of the 9 that you want, and you've solved your problem. Maz is able to put 9 units onto a conveyor belt system. What's the word?
Assembly line.
Assembly line. Thank
Yeah,
you. And deliver with hyper efficiency a great valued vehicle. So these are the types of things that we see when we see operational excellence in play. This is what serves us best in the home service industry. Why does this all matter? Because when we get really good at that, we can get really good at talking about that and supporting that and representing that and delivering that with hyper efficiency, which means it's going to be more economical from a money standpoint. It's going to be less frustrating, stressful, and anxiety ridden to the customer because the thing's going to get done. There's less likelihood of future breakdowns, those types of things in those types of situations. And the time it takes is going to be much more efficient, right? So we're saving on the 3 key elements of the value proposition: money, energy, and time, right? Those are the things we can talk about in ads all day long. But we don't say, hey, we're going to save you money, energy, and time. That's a little too on the nose. Right? What we can talk about, though, is how this situation solved the problem forever. One of my friends, Steve, he had a wall crack issue in his basement of his mother's house, and he was taking care of it because she's not in good health. And he goes, well, it's going to cost $2,000 to fix it up. And he goes, does that mean I'm ever going to see you again? He goes, well, you might. He goes, how much do I have to pay for you to never show up in my house ever again? He goes, well, that's $2,000 more. He goes, well, just do that one, and then never come in this house again. Just solve the problem, do it right the first time. And I don't ever want to see you again. Not that I don't like you, just that I don't want to ever have to deal with home services. I don't want to have to deal with junk or any of those things, right? They want that stuff to be invisible out of their lives, unburdened, right? So that they can elevate their positive resonance. They can be happy again. They can get to a baseline of calm and get rid of that anxiety burden that's haunting them, right? So
that's huge.
This is all emotional stuff, right? Yeah. This is value proposition stuff. This is motivation stuff, right? And when we start talking about this stuff in the context of the customer's story, not our story, the customer's story, right? Just point at it and we'll make it disappear, as they say at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. That's point at the thing that causes you anxiety and we will make it disappear instantly, right? That is a powerful message that allows the customer, right? Don't go using it, guys. Trust me, it's copyrighted.
Yeah, trademarked, all that stuff. Right?
You will. It will cost you more than you ever imagined to use it. But these are the types of things that can be created to create the context and the framework to allow us to go, I get it, right? That goes away. I feel better. I just feel better thinking about it. Let me make that phone call. Right. And that's our job, is to get the phone to ring, with the person who isn't thinking about, let me call the cheapest place in town that's going to get this monkey off my back. Right. It's a commodity to me. Let me call the person that's going to be the most empathetic, competent, and convenient. You get those 3 things, you own the world, right? Because those are the first 3 things that a customer is looking for in every situation when it comes to home services. Empathetic, competent, convenience.
Which do you think is most important in there?
Empathy is the one that you have to do first, right? There's not one that's more important than the other. People will sacrifice a little bit of convenience if it were to come through to something that's more competent. For example, they would sacrifice it if it took 3 days to do the job right? I'll trade off some of my convenience to do that. Empathy is the very first one. And the research is very, very deep in this. Empathy first, competency second, and empathy is the thing you have to lead with. So be a human being. What does that mean? Talk about the things you stand for and the things you stand against. Talk about the things that you believe in and the things that you don't believe in. People don't follow people who aren't going anywhere. They only follow people who have some direction, right? Who have a North Star, who are walking with purpose to their destination. And that's your business. The business with purpose is the one that the people are going to rally in behind and go with.
How do you blend that? Sorry, I cut you off.
Customers and candidates, your
Yeah.
employees as much as your customers.
Yeah, Tommy Miller talks a lot about that. You
Mm.
know how their marketing is as much toward future candidates, job candidates, as it is to future clients. You know,
Yeah, you bet.
he's building something big, and he needs a pipeline full of hires just as much as he needs a pipeline full of clients.
He does, and look, it's not about finding people who are really good at garage doors. It's about finding people who have an aptitude towards mechanics, right?
Mhm.
And the right attitude. The people who believe in the things that you believe in, the people who stand for the things that you stand for. Surround yourselves with people, like-minded people. Get past the small talk, and you're going to change the world.
Mm. Yeah, that's huge. That's so interesting. So you made a very interesting point. I love this conversation, by the way, because I think I'm going to touch on a few things. We're going to touch on the convenience thing, and how pricing and convenience don't, how powerful that can be. But I also want to talk a little bit after that about branding, because you talked about people don't follow people who aren't going anywhere. I want to talk about posting as a business, posting on your personal profile for branding, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. But let's touch on convenience first.
Certainly.
We like the empathy, competence, and convenience. I think that's interesting. I've never heard it worded like that. But I'm at the point now where, with the craziness of 3 kids, a business, all of that going on, I can't be the handyman I once used to be around the home. So the other day, I was cleaning the shower, and the shower was kind of plugging up a little bit with hair, right? And so I took the grating off, cleaned out the shower, or cleaned out all the hair. Well, what happened was a big ball of hair fell in and basically plugged the trap. So now we were just up a creek with no paddle. What happened is I didn't have time to go fix that. I could have gone and gotten a coat hook. I actually couldn't find any coat hooks in our house, because we're all modernized now. I could have fished that out, right?
Yeah.
But I had a couple client calls that evening. I had a very, very full day the next day, and I knew that by the time shower time rolled around for Alyssa the next night, I would not have that fixed.
Yeah.
So I called a plumber. They came out within 2 hours, had it fixed, charged me $126, and it was worth every penny to me, because I was on calls and stuff, and it just wouldn't have happened. So it's like, convenience is so important. Yeah, they were empathetic. They walked me through the problem. They didn't come at a certain time when I knew that we couldn't have them in the house during the day. But the convenience factor, any service industry where someone calls you, whether it be junk removal or plumbing is kind of an interesting one, because oftentimes people need it right now. But if you're there and you're able to provide the service that they need, and don't mess it up, you've got something that no one can take from you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, or kind of kick back to that, my thoughts on that conversation.
You're absolutely right, and you demonstrated a situation in which you, as the customer, were thinking about it in a relational mindset. Now, let's pull the curtain back a little bit here and take a look at the mindsets of people, what we call the underlying felt needs of people. Not the felt needs, the underlying felt needs. The underlying felt needs are either going to be survival or thriving. Surviving, thriving, right? And if you look at Abraham's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, you're going to see basic physiological needs. You're going to see then the security needs, then you're going to see belonging, and so forth. That ends up being a really interesting construct for us when you start overlapping it with things like tribal leadership and the 5 levels of the tribe. And then you overlap it with Jim Collins' stuff over the 5 levels of a leader. And what we can do is we can actually boil it down into the self, the individual, and the tribe. All of the people who are all being motivated and steered in similar directions, both as a society and as individuals, both as a business, right, and as a individual within the business. So, to spare getting into a bunch of very deep context around that and the science that goes along with it, we'll jump back to survival mode, thriving mode. In surviving mode, you're thinking transactionally, right? Cheapest solutions, hoarding my resources, limiting or restricting the spend to protect myself and or my clan of some sort with something, be it my own self-survival of paying the mortgage and getting that car payment, getting food for the kids, straight through to I've been raised this way. I've got buckets of money, but I don't value this thing, so I'm going to think about it in a transactional way, which means I'm keeping my money and I will spend more of my time in finding the cheapest solution, be it going to Home Depot and buying your own snake, straight through to finding a handyman that's going to do it for pizza money and beer. The flip side of that is the relational mindset. This is an underlying felt need of thriving, right? So we're appreciating or valuing our time more than we're valuing our money. Regardless of which direction you're coming from here, Lewis, you're coming from it to protect your energy. And some might call energy happiness. And happiness is the fundamental root of everything that we're trying to protect. It's a resonance thing. If I'm feeling negative in my resonance, right, I'm going to do something to resolve that to get me back to a baseline of happy or better, right?
Yeah.
Now, you clear your drain, you're not like over the moon, like high-fiving everyone and showing your in-laws, how wonderful clean your drain is.
But Alyssa is, because it
Right?
didn't plug up when she tried to jump in the shower.
He's no longer standing in sewer water. Exactly. Because that's a big deal. Now, you as a man, as a provider, may feel, and I'm not projecting on you, but you may feel a certain guilt or shame that you need to get that thing done. And the best way for you to do that, because you are in thriving mode, you're relational in the mindset, you are willing to pay someone a fair premium to make that problem go away, right? Where the survival mindset is not, right? They will do it themselves. They will wait it out. They will time it out until they find the cheapest way to do that, because their greatest fear is spending too much money. The relational customer is not getting the right solution, or getting a solution that doesn't do the thing it's supposed to do. The plumber comes in, charges you $126, and you still have a clogged drain. Right? Why did I waste my time on this? The $126, whatever, right? We can resolve that. But man, I didn't have that hour to burn to have him go clear it out and not do the job. Right. Just like my friend Steve didn't have the time to have that guy coming back 2 and 3 years down the road every few years. Surprise, surprise, we've got another leak in the basement. No, fix it once the right way. I don't need the cheap patch. I need the real job. Right. And loads of customers think that way. About half the planet does. 34% of people are fully transactional. 34% of people are fully relational. The 16% tails of both of those are essentially people who aren't going to buy from you. Right? Don't worry about them. Right? They have the money. They're not spending it with you. They don't have the money. They're not spending it with you. Don't try to go after 100% of the market. Go after the 68% of the market that can actually buy your stuff.
I think that's key, right? It's like, and it's interesting because it saved me a ton of time. I knew that the problem would be solved by the next night, because what happened is actually the hair fell down. I did during the day. I was like, I'm getting this done. I'd been seeing it was a little bit slow. And then she got in the shower and actually backed out. So she was standing in her shower water, and that was not fun, right?
Yes.
And so I was like, I got to get this done by the next night.
Right.
They came. It was their minimum trip charge. She was here for 5 minutes. It didn't take him long at all, and I knew it wouldn't. Yeah. But I knew that I needed to have that done by the next day.
This all stems from motivations. There's 6 external motivations that matter a whole lot. There's 6 internal motivations that matter a whole lot. The 3 internal motivations that hold a positive resonance are identity, purpose, and adventure. The 3 internal ones that hold a negative resonance are fear, shame, and guilt. These are the 6 things that are driving us most. Those are coming from within our own heart, our own gut, our own brain, telling us shame, 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 or guilt, 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 or fear, 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 or this elevates your status. You're a better person. You're a more valuable person, right? And as much as we'd like to pretend like classing isn't a thing or ranking isn't a thing, it is never going to change in the human mindset, the human construct, because it's been baked into us for tens of thousands of years. This is the reality that we live. So we have to just understand what the reality is so that we can choose how we're going to live our lives, right? In the external side, we have pay, praise, and power. So and I'm talking about employees now. So if I were to switch that out to customers, we're looking at money, energy, and time, right? Those value propositions, the way that how much it's going to cost is going to affect us? Praise, right? Are we going to get accolades that feed our identity from the external forces, right? My husband, my wife, my sister, my brother, my friends, my coworkers. Are they going to say, oh, wow, that's awesome. Oh, I really like your new car. All these things, praise, right? And power, does it rank me up within the ranks of my various tribes, my church, my home, my work, right? Well, all of those things are external and influencing the most important, which is identity. Everything leads back to identity. And then we look at the the negative resonance versions of those, right? We look at no dignity. We look at, my goodness, I just drew a blank. No dignity and no control. And for some reason, I'm blanking out here on my third one here, but no dignity, no control, and something else.
It'll come to you.
That'll come to me. I don't want to stall up the conversation here. Ultimately, what we're doing here is these are external things that I'm taking away. If I make you feel like an idiot, I've taken away your dignity, right? When I've asked you to do something that you have no control over as a customer or as an employee, I'm taking away your control, right? And no autonomy was the other one. And when I don't give you this independence that you're looking for, right? We're creating an environment where we're not any longer motivating. In fact, we're demotivating. So this happens in sales and in persuasion, with your wife, your kids, whatever, as much as it happens as employees, right? If I say, hey, I expect you to have a 30% closing ratio, well, that's a KPI. I have no control over the KPI. That's absolute utter nonsense. If I know that 30% is my threshold, what I do have control over is the actions and behaviors I take to get or exceed that KPI, right? So what am I going to do? Focus on my actions and behaviors, not on the KPI, both as a boss and an employee. So how am I going to motivate my employees? By not demotivating them, right?
Yeah.
Right? How am I going to motivate my customers to buy? By avoiding those things that remove control or dignity or autonomy from the decision-making process, right? And that's huge, right? So when we understand these 12 major motivation points, we now have everything that we need, right? And these are pain points and pleasure points. So everyone knows about pain points, right? Everyone loves to talk about fear is the number one way to sell people. Well, yes, but it's also can quickly turn into weaponized fear, which is evil and of bad intent. Is there places to use fear appropriately and with ethical standings? 100% yes, absolutely. It is a reality, but we also have to recognize that we have to balance that with the value proposition equation: money, energy, time. What are we really trying to do here? Get back to a place of happiness, get to a baseline of good, right? So that my negative resonance isn't taking over my positive resonance. When you feel bad, right? Negative resonance, bad energy, bad vibrations. This all seems very woo-woo sometimes. It's not. It's actually just pure science, right? These are actual real things that are happening. And it's all happening through the chemicals that are firing through our brains, right?
That's so interesting. Yeah, we have a comment here. He says, demoting is usually as a result of demotivation. Bellyman Boy on YouTube is popping in. And he says the other thing is the issue is a lot of bosses usually don't take into consideration the customer or client. And, sometimes bosses just use you as a scapegoat as a salesperson.
They absolutely. Well, keep in mind, bosses are like Soylent Green. If you ever watched the 1975 movie or 74 movie that's based on 2022, when they were making a bunch of human beings into green crackers, salespeople and bosses and your wife and your kids, they're all made of people, right?
They are made of people.
So when you start to realize, oh wait, my boss is dealing with the same fear, shame, and guilt from his boss, right? And then he's just trickling that down into demotivational actions and behaviors. Well, what if we were to reframe that? Most bosses have no idea that they shouldn't be trying to manage you by KPI, that they should be trying to lead you by actions and behaviors, right? They don't understand an ounce of what dopamine actually does in the functions of a human being, let alone the here and now chemicals that act as longer term, more supportive happy chemicals to keep the momentum going, not just start the momentum like dopamine does. So it's not their fault that they're bad bosses, but it's also their fault that they haven't gone looking for it. Now, I've taken 5 years to figure this stuff out, and I've gone down some rabbit holes, and most people are not me. So what I'm suggesting is that let's get some of this stuff simplified and consolidated down into some real easy stuff that we get right first before we start moving on to more complex concepts.
Yeah, this is phenomenal. I didn't know the conversation was going to go this way, and this is the way I always like it to go. This is there's some good stuff, and I think it's I love how you know, I was expecting a couple sentences from the plumbing story, and we went into the science because I love the science of it, and I think that you know, as I'm leveling up as a owner and boss, hopefully anyway, trying to do that level up, it's like these things are starting to come into play for me. It's like
They are.
the KPI thing hit me in a way. You know, we're starting to implement EOS, and KPIs are a big thing. You know, the weekly and monthly and quarterly scorecards,
Yep.
how that all comes into play. But it's like, lead with more than just the KPIs. See how we can, you know, exceed and what is on the other side of exceeding that. You know what
when yeah, you know what, the KPI for me isn't red, yellow, and green. It's red and green, right? You're either at or above the expected number or the benchmark number, however we came up with that benchmark, or you're below it, right? And all that tells me is I need to pay attention to the actions and behaviors. Did we do enough of the thing that we're supposed to do to get us in the green? Or did we not do enough of that thing? And if we did, where did it break? In a complex sales process, for example, which is not a linear process that everyone wants to make it out to be, it's all over the place. It's a spiky friggin' ball. We can't control the way that this thing is going to go. What we can do is nudge things over into place, right? A little bit like pinball. And when we start to do that in a different perspective, we start to realize, oh, okay, well, it broke right here because we do the same thing every single time, right? We know that if we just fix that problem, right, that we're going to get more of this. And that's going to get us to more of that. In the car business, to give you an example, when the customer comes in, if we get their trade information right away so that while other things are happening, we can get that information for them, right? They feel like they're being served and getting the information pulled together. If they want to trade in their car, if they don't, that's no big deal. But we gather that information. We then identify the right product. We get it down to a single product and we test drive that product. We know that if it stops there, there's a virtual no chance that you're going to close the deal. We know that if we can get it to paper and put an offer on the table, first serve being from the salesperson, right, on the agreement that this is the car that they would buy, we are going to see an 80% chance of close, right? If we can get from offer to counter offer, that our closing percentage goes up. Biggest problem, the biggest sticking point here is that most car dealerships don't get things to paper. They just have a bunch of conversations. Conversations don't pay the bills, right? No different than having a conversation in your customer's house about the way that they could fix the thing that you know how to fix or solve the problem that they need to solve is a waste of everyone's time. You're actually not helping your customers by not selling them. One of the things that I believe more than anything is sales solve problems. Mark Cuban said that. And I believe it because the reality of it is it's not just solving the customer's problem, it's solving your problem of generating revenue for the business. And there's always two to tango. Let's do what we can to make the thing happen. We're serving at the highest level when we close.
Yeah. That's huge. Ryan, there's been some gold in here. I'm gonna maybe do a little bit of a fire round for you as we wrap up here.
Absolutely.
Because this has been good. We're definitely gonna have to do this again
Happy to.
and dive deeper. But if you were to suggest for a business owner under $1 million, what's a good book or couple books that they should dive into on any of the topics that we talked about here today?
Yeah.
Anything that pops in your mind?
Well, there's a bunch of things that pop into my mind from a marketing standpoint. I would strongly recommend getting the trilogy of Wizard of Ads. So Wizard of Ads, the magical worlds of Wizard of Ads, and the secret formulas of the Wizard of Ads. These are very easy to read. They're very, very interesting topics, but they start to frame up not just how you brand your company, but how you inspire in your company and how you drive business, both from a sales and from a culture standpoint. Each one of these books has an infinite amount of wisdom that we serve as our basis for what we put out into the universe for advertising. The other is to get your from a book standpoint. I'm a big fan of Tribal Leadership. I think that's a really eye-opening book for people to start seeing how they can kind of wrap their nugget around that framework. Now, I've taken it a few steps further. There's also a third book that's a friend of mine, Steve Foran, wrote, Surviving to Thriving, The 10 Laws of Grateful Leadership. These are all excellent books that will serve people who are under $1 million looking to move that process. One of the big things that I think served me more than anything was Trainual, which I'm a certified consultant for, and that's a tool that you use online to build your systems and processes, to put the things in there that you stand for and stand against, along with all the kind of boring policy stuff that you have to write about, but then to get that stuff not only on writing but on video in these nice short little 3 to 5 minute segments that show your guys what you stand for, so that you can duplicate yourself instantly and drive that forward. When we do that, we're creating that body of knowledge that your tribe needs to be a powerful tribe. It's all about a definition of terms and agreeing on those definition of terms, meaning one specific thing.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. What would you leave with the listeners?
What would I leave with the listeners?
A thought today.
Some of the things that I've been thinking about. When you build an amazing culture, when you build a really amazing culture, a culture that not only protects but defends a happy, healthy, wealthy culture, when you build a culture, the people that live in your culture, in your tribe, are going to deliver the buying experience that you want. And if you want to deliver a world-class buying experience, these are the willing participants to do the thing that you need to do. So it starts at culture. You move it to buying experience and deliver that consistently. That's going to build your gravitas. That's going to build your value and worth within your bigger community, within your trade area. And that's going to spill over into the stories that we can tell at Wizard of Ads. Those are the things that we can do to really drive your business to exponential levels. You know, when you start looking at the huge, monstrous success that is 1-800-GOT-JUNK, who is not my client, but a client of the Wizard of Ads, and somebody that we've learned a great deal from, there is huge, staggering opportunity to grow your business in a very, very meaningful way. And he does it based on culture. So his 2 books are out right now, Willing to Fail and BYOB, Build Your Own Brand, Build Your Own Business. There's a 3rd book coming, I would think next year, 2024. All really great books to read if you're in the junk removal space, but frankly, in any space that's in home services or externally triggered grudge purchases, like we see in residential home service.
Externally triggered grudge purchases.
Yes,
that's a fancy term. I like it.
Well, that's the unfortunate reality of the world we live in. Unlike Lululemons, where you internally picture yourself and your sweet, sweet, sweet cheeks in those Lulus, and then you go and buy them. In home services, something breaks, you are unpleased about that, and then you have to go buy something, and that's that middle section where everything was great. Now something's broke, it's ruined, disrupted your life. And that's what the external trigger is. It's a grudge purchase because nobody wants to spend the money on it. People want their stuff to be invisible in their house when it comes to home services. So
that's so good. Yeah. Ryan, where can people find you?
Wizardofads.contractors is my website. You can certainly reach me. There has all the contact information. I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok under Wizard of Sales or Wizard of Ads for contractors. And that's my specific kind of category that I've carved off to serve the home service industry.
Brilliant. Appreciate you coming on here today. Really cool to chop it up, and excited to make this happen again, my friend.
Absolutely. Anytime. Happy to, my friend. You take care.
All right, guys, go give Ryan a follow. We'll wrap up briefly off air, but take a listen. I'm probably going to re-listen to this because there's some good stuff in here. Till next time, guys.
Bye now.